All right, I'm going to go through the physics of will to explain myself because evidently I'm really confusing. First, I'm going to play the description. Okay, now I wasn't quite fair to the computational people. They are doing more than just saying the computers are getting fast enough. But I was just emphasizing that part of their view. And I did, in my defense, mention they're designing a lot of other things, in advance of just the pure computational speed necessary. Um, on the other hand, I did say physics/science. So, uh, anybody confused as to what I meant about physics, going in and out of the generality, that physics/science, I don't know. Uh, maybe you don't read that description box. I don't know. It's kind of obscure. When you don't understand something, probably all that text is just clutter. Okay, let's play my video. It says the thing about will is that I want to study it with physics, right? I want to look at what the physics of it is. And unlike what people like Invenham say, we don't have enough physics to explain the subjective experience. And this is really the important part. We're caught. So, by don't have enough physics, I mean that, we don't have an explanation yet for it. We don't have enough physics. I mean, it might be from principles we already know, but we just haven't got them together like an invention. But it's not just the lack of an invention like a gadget, because it's a scientifically appropriate study, right? I expect there to be such in science. Up in will right now, and that's fine. We can stay caught up in it. But we should think a little bit about the fact that the real question is just, why is there this subjective experience that thinks it has choices? Okay, so it doesn't have choices. Okay, by the fact that there's a subjective experience that has choices, this is confusing to some people because they're like, well, you say you have will, but you're just like a machine saying that. But I'm talking about being on the inside. Now you could, for definitions of this, I have various experience with different ones. I would like to refer to the Cartesian theater. That's something people that know about Google or Ask Jeeves could find out. The Cartesian theater, something you could look up. But I think it's just sort of a common sense, a subjective, that we're in our position. Most of us imagine other people inside their heads, looking at the world out of their eyes. So that's what I mean by the subjective experience. You could Google hard problem. I think some of you might have Googled the hard problem of consciousness now, but probably don't want to admit that. Say we assume that. Why is there a subjective experience? What kind of there is no fit. So, and by why, I mean, what is a hint of how it's generated? Given, we'll have to say, well, how is the stuff that generates it generated? That'll be interesting too, but we haven't even gotten to the part of how could it even possibly be? None of our math or logic seems to point to something that has to create a subjective experience out of the material world as it seems to be made. Physics. Oh, wait, I'll rewind that so I can explain. Why is there a subjective experience? What kind of there is no physics that okay. No physics. I just said right there's no physics. What was I thinking? There's no physics? Of course there's physics. Wait, maybe I should rewind it. What kind of there is no physics that explains how something would gain cognitive perspective. Okay, by what I mean is I guess I misspoke there. What I mean is there's no physical explanation yet for that.
None whatsoever.
And sometimes people call that physics. The physical explanation can be called the physics of, anesthesia is like the physical explanation of. Kind of good.
So I'm saying we investigate that physics. Alright, why do I...
Wait, so I'm saying we investigate that physics. Some people misinterpreted this as me saying it's impossible to answer. And I guess it's because, of course, just because you investigate something doesn't mean you're going to find the answer. I might be suggesting that we investigate it in order to not find the answer. Totally possible, and I'm sorry for that.
In fact, it have to do with, modern physics? Well, because nothing in classical physics describes it, so it's...
Okay, by classical physics, you should Google this guy called Newton. That's pretty much what I mean, the Newtonian physics. It held sway for quite some time, I think 5 or 6 years at least. And, and it became known, because it was there for so long. Might have been a little longer than that. But be that as it may, about 100 years ago, it got kind of, I don't know, I don't want to hurt any dead physicists' feelings. It was sort of, it was made obsolete. New explanations took over everything it covered. It could still be used as an approximation, really useful, because sometimes you're writing a computer program and you don't need things exact. You just need a really good approximation. And it's a great freaking approximation. I mean, how else would it have lasted so long? But then 100 years ago, so people started to figure out some of the problems. It was from studying chemistry. I don't know if you know that. They came up with a few new physical models, and also this other guy studying time and space and light. And really just thinking through thought experiments on Galilean relativity. And those two things sort of made it obsolete, in a sense. I loved physics in school. I don't mean any offense to my physics teacher from high school. I really enjoyed that class.
It's either something we already have in modern physics or something we haven't even discovered yet.
Okay, so I'm basically classifying science in classical physics, modern physics, those two schools of thought I just mentioned, and stuff we don't know yet. And I'm saying it's one of those. Why? Because everything's physics. So when people ask me, well, why do you think it's one of those 3 categories, Piero? Those are 3 categories just of physics. What about metaphysics? I don't believe in metaphysics.
It's dark energy or something.
Ooh, that sounds like I'm saying will is explained by dark energy, but let's go back. I think the clarity is here.
Physics, or something we haven't even discovered yet. It's dark energy or something.
Oh, I was using dark energy as an example of something we haven't discovered, because it's so hard to talk about things we haven't discovered with people that only think of things that they think have already been discovered. But, dark energy is in this neat nether threshold in science where we've detected it's there, and all we know is that it's there. A lot of open possibilities about it, huh?
If you think that it is probably explainable, then you might...
Oh, by it I meant will, by that conscious subjective experience. Damn, I should not use pronouns.
Might as well try to explain it with the current physics. But don't use the...
I said you might as well explain it with the current physics. You might as well explain it with the current physics. That would be the modern physics. But don't...
part that can't explain it.
Yeah, don't use the part that can't explain it, the classical physics. Now, I didn't go into why I think classical physics can't explain it except for as a generality. I think the limits, I said that the limits we have put on, our exhaustive definitions and technical definitions of the tools of classical physics are insufficient. I think it's been proven. But that's another subject. That's where someone might come back with a video of, oh, hey, look, no, classical physics can do it. Look, my clock is conscious.
Classical physics.
Okay, by classical physics, I still mean, in case anybody thought I changed definition, I still mean that Newtonian physics from the way back, over 100 years ago.
And explain isn't the right word, but let's just keep moving.
Oh, by explain not being the right word, I meant, I was about to say that Newtonian physics could explain the way a human behaves. And explain isn't the right word because Newtonian physics doesn't explain chemistry, and you need chemistry to explain how a human behaves. And therefore explain is not really quite the right word, but out of charity to people who are not that subtle, I just use the word explain. Ironically, they got confused by my explanation of the use, by my putting virtual quote marks around the term so that one would know that it was open to discussion what I meant by that.
Word explain. It can explain why somebody behaves so intricately.
But not really, because that requires all kinds of explanations that rely on chemistry, which, as most of us with Google can know, involves quantum mechanics, otherwise known as modern physics for the purpose of this video.
Can, but it cannot explain the fact that there's a subjective experience that arises that I have,
It can't explain that. And I'm so sorry I didn't say yet every time. You can't explain that yet. I'm sorry. I thought the physics of will, and I want to study it with will. I thought it would, I have this weird way of thinking, and I thought that would convey that I thought physics applied to will in a way that would be productive of something. I kept forgetting that when I say you should use physics to look at the will, I might be saying that you should do that just because I want to waste physics' time. And that's my bad, and I should have said yet. So there's no physical explanation yet. Oh, I'm so sorry, all of you people so confused by my leaving the word yet out.
No exists through me having. There is no explanation about how that can happen.
Oh, see, and there I meant there is no explanation yet. And that's where the physics was going to get the explanation. That's why I was trying to say, let's use physics. It makes explanations where there aren't any. And I guess that's not obvious. I led people to believe with my terribly poor choice of words that I thought there just is no explanation ever possible, right? And I think part of the confusion is some people think of explanations as things that are out there. So there's an explanation, we have to find the explanation. But I don't think that way. I think there's a phenomena out there and the explanation's in our head, and if there's no explanation in our head, there's no explanation yet, and we have to create one. So, yeah, like I said, I'm terribly sorry about that. Yet.
So let's explain it.
So let's explain it. And by that, some people got the idea it couldn't be explained because I had just said there was no explanation, so let's explain it. And I'm just like acting nuts there. I'm just like, to them, I'm saying two totally opposite things because I didn't say yet. I'm sorry, yet.
And the reason I'm pro-will when we do use the word free will, I argue on that side, is because our happiness and satisfaction in life is hinged entirely, 100%, on how we interact with our will.
And the reason I say that, I know it's like so trivializing to say everything is something, but it just seems to me that anytime I'm doing anything or experiencing anything, that my conscious subjective, that Cartesian theater is involved along with my will, which feels it's experiencing and reacting to it.
Again, whether it's really free or that's all an illusion or it's somewhere in between, when we feel that we're making decisions and we're having an impact, and our intent is expressed, that makes us happier.
Okay, this is like talking backwards, huh? Okay, because really, this one is honestly, I'm no joke, yeah. So the thing is, there, this is about, this is what the video is really about to me. That whether the will is free or not is not as interesting a question as how the will works.
Excuse me. So I think it's kind of important to figure out how that works.
And I should have said, and I think that's possible to do, not just important. Because when I said it was important, I didn't, I had already led people to think it was impossible. So by saying I want an explanation, and I think it's important to get one, I'm just pouring confusion on the confusion fire.
Because I do think it's important, our satisfaction. So
By that I just meant that I think it's important to us if we feel satisfied.
there's no reason to avoid studying the physics of the phenomenon in any case, no matter what.
So no matter whether the will is free or not, there's no reason not to study the physics. Regardless, it's an interesting question scientifically in its own right, and it will benefit us with applications like even better anesthesia.
Really, compatibilism is the only view in the sense that
Okay, by compatibilism I meant it's the only view. This I really misspoke seriously there, because really I did. In this one I would have liked to be more clear, even more than all those others. Let's rewind so I can get it right.
that now a compatibilist proper might say that
Oh, yeah, the compatibilism. What I meant is that you can't see. To me, compatibilists, though they say it's an illusion, the will, they basically acknowledge you have to live with it, and so inherently, if they're at all, unless they're anti-science, I should say, there's an implicit agreement that it should be studied. It's relevant. Is my point. It's relevant. Since it's relevant, there's reason to study it. So at the very least, even if you don't believe in willpower, that can't be used as a justification to not even study it. You can't say it's just an illusion, don't study it. If it's an illusion, that makes it even more interesting. Doesn't seem like an illusion. If it's an illusion, it's big news. So it's worth studying, and those that think it's already shown have nothing to fear, obviously, and they could convince the rest of us, and again, actually do things with this will, ironically.
will could be free and determinism. But I'm talking about compatibilism where, okay, will is sort of an illusion because you don't have the choice, you think, but it's still there. It has a relationship, will.
In other words, will is not free, but there's this phenomena going on when we think we're willing. Just like you could say love is an illusion, but you can PET scan someone and see what their brain is doing at the time.
The success or failure of it has a relationship to your life and your satisfaction.
Okay, I know this is a personal belief, but I think it has a relation to your satisfaction, the will, and whether you are satisfied with your choices has to do with whether you're satisfied, period.
So it exists as a thing to study. The fact that it's not the first cause, because there are no first causes, is not particularly surprising.
Okay, there are no first causes, so I'm not trying to justify willpower as the first cause of our actions. I think the first cause is not a really sensible idea, but if you want to look in prior causes, it goes way back. It's visible, through a lot of material relations back in time, causing me up to this point. So I'm more interested in how the brain is working when it's willing than I am this idea that somebody's trying to give credit to a ghost. No. All right. So I hope I clarified that, and I apologize so profusely for not saying yet. Yet. Just get that in a little bit extra. And it's never too many yets when you're saying that there should be a scientific study because we don't know something. You should always say yet. So, yet.